I'm a 37-year-old man and my lovely wife, 36, and I have little to no problems with each other. However, upon noticing little things that are mounting up to a rather terrifying level, I'm not sure I can ignore this anymore. She's a great person. She's done so much for me this whole marriage and respects that I do not want to have cuddles after a rather traumatizing experience that I don't need to get into. She does little things that show she listens and cares about me, and I do the same for her. I want to stay with her because we've been married for 10 years now, and she is all I know, but lately I just don't know what's going on and why she's acting the way that she is. The first notable time was when we found an egg on the curb. We assumed it was from our neighbor, given that they have chickens and maybe an egg rollout or something. Without a second thought, my wife stomped on the egg. Now, I would have been fine had it been an infertile egg or a cooking egg without anything, but the entire fetus was seen and I threw up. She laughed, saying that it was funny and at least the neighbors don't have to worry about another chicken. I told myself that it was just an egg and she had no idea that there would be a fetus in it, but her reaction afterwards rattled me. I brushed it off because, like I said, I love her. Maybe that is stupid, but I do. I really love her. But the things continued, and my love for her is wavering. Some notable things I remember were stated below. We have a dog. We'll call him Butter. Butter is the most calm dog in the world, and housebroken and well-trained. However, one time, he was very sick and irritated, and he went number 2 on the carpet. My wife screamed at Butter. Screamed. I told her to stop because the damage was done already and Butter is a dog who is sick. I cleaned the carpet and she never blew up at Butter again, but it rubbed me the wrong way how mean she was to him. I understand that she was frustrated, but Butter started crying and trying to give her paw, and she kept screaming at him. My mom passed in 2020. Natural causes. But I was very close with her, and it took many years to accept it. I keep her favorite bracelet on a table with family photos of her and me. One day, it was missing and I had a panic attack. The bracelet was made by my mom's grandfather, and she wore it every day. It was a part of her, but when I told my wife, she told me that she sold it. I sobbed. I wasn't mad at her, just devastated. But soon after, the bracelet was back on the table and I asked her about that. She started laughing and saying that, "You should have seen your face." When we were gardening, I noticed I dropped my keys. She was grouchy since it was hot, and she was planting flowers since the morning. When she found them, she threw them at my face and it cut my nose. She felt horrible, but that reaction threw me off. One time after work on Halloween, I was feeling particularly depressed for no reason. I don't blame her for this, but she played a prank on me and jump scared me, something we do every Halloween. I started crying and having a breakdown because it was kind of the last straw for me after my shift. She laughed and kept laughing, then went back to the living room and watched TV. One time on Facebook, we found out that a classmate had been in a car accident. I told her, and she shrugged, saying that she didn't really know her, so it doesn't matter. It's okay for her to not care about the victim, but the poor girl was heavily injured, and my memories of her from school were pleasant, and she genuinely didn't deserve what happened. My wife and I love horror. We are horror fans, but I cannot stand violence against animals. It disturbs me. So, when we put on When Evil Lurks, as you can imagine, I threw up. The kicker is that she has seen it, but wanted to watch it with me since she loves it so much. I'm happy she loves it, but I would have appreciated a warning, which I vocalized. She shrugged it off and that was that. That's a few, but the worst of it happened just yesterday. I tried my hardest to not say anything, but it might be my last straw. I was cleaning up our room and my wife was at work, and I found a journal buried underneath the mattress as I was swapping sheets. For some reason, I opened it and realized quickly that it was my wife's diary. I would have put it back if I didn't see the words on the page. I was horrified. She wrote that when she was driving, there was a line of geese crossing the street. Annoying, yes, but the thing you are supposed to do is wait. My wife wrote that geese are a useless species, so it shouldn't matter if a few get run over. Yes, she just ran over 2 geese on the road. Again, that I was horrified. I know what people will say, so I'm going to answer a few questions. I love her. I recognize that sometimes her behavior is unacceptable and concerning. I recognize the concern, which is why I am here in the first place. But you all have to realize that for the past 16 years now, she's been my world. We dated for 6 years before getting married, and it's been 10 years since our wedding. In those 16 years, I've witnessed her go through horrific things, and she's witnessed the same. It's hard to sum up those 16 years, but it's difficult and I'm already saying too much. I noticed the change over the past 3 or so years. Even then, in the moment, I didn't see it as an issue until reading that little journal entry. I can't just leave her, but I can't act the same around her after finding that out. I realized that I need to confront her about what I saw, but truthfully, I am afraid. I never knew it was something she was capable of until I read it and started putting the pieces together. Whatever is going on, I don't know what to do with it. She has a therapist and so do I. She seems genuine, but I don't know what to do, knowing that she willingly killed an animal without any remorse. Honestly, I just don't want to leave her. I met her young, and all I know is her. She's seen me through the most vulnerable parts of my life and vice versa. Her family and my family are basically intertwined. We all love each other. She's basically been there longer than when she hasn't. If I have to leave her, I think that will be it for me. That'll be all I have. I'm 37, which isn't old, but also not desirable either. I don't even know why she had a crush on me because I personally don't think I'm desirable. I don't even know if this post will make sense. I don't know if anyone will take the time out of their day to read my struggles. My therapist is on vacation, so I can't tell her yet. I need somebody to talk to, because everybody that I'm telling brushes it off since she is a very sweet person to them. I just want to fix this. Edit. Answering some questions. I said, she's witnessed horrific things. I mean that a family member of hers has passed, and one of our mutual friends passed as well. But this didn't happen until months later. We have no kids. I had a rough experience. I won't delve into that. Made me realize I am asexual, and I will ask her soon. Relevant comments. Commenter. I will be super honest with you. I was married for 9 long years to someone just like your wife. The last straw. One of my cats being beaten to the point of her face being so swollen that when I was shut for a week and she didn't get out of her hiding spot for 3 days. Urine and feces in the corner of a closet. I guess she couldn't bring herself to make a run for the litter box, in case she would encounter him. I was out the door in a week. It took everything from me, but I knew this would escalate. Don't wait too long. OP. This sounds like a psychopath/covert narcissism. Be safe. Take care and please, confide in family members or friends you trust. Let people know what's going on. Commenter. You have a low self-esteem. That much is obvious from the way you write and describe yourself. That is why you want to stay with a woman who has no empathy, takes pleasure in animals being harmed, even killed, and while this would normally be unnerving and freak someone out, you seem keen to turn a blind eye. People who harm animals and take pleasure out of it start with animals, but it graduates to human beings. I'm so glad you don't have any kids with her. You have said you don't want to leave her, and strangely, you seem to believe that at the age of 37 you're on the shelf. You talk about families being intertwined and that you've known her for years and years. So what? People get divorced after years of having enmeshed lives, mutual friends, shared assets, children, pets, etc. So what if you share these things or have been together for years? Is that reason enough to ignore and turn a blind eye to what sounds like psychopathic behavior? She seems genuine, and she has a therapist. Well, she is very aware of how she comes across, and she wants you to remain in the marriage so she can continue to manipulate you. So of course she can do all the right things and come across as cooperative and reflective. She's not silly at all, and she knows exactly what she is doing. She hasn't become this way. Her mask slips every now and then, but she puts the mask back on to keep you where you are, exactly where she needs you to be. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm telling you, you don't know your wife like you think you do. OP. Update 1. Answering some concerns. Thank you for your comments and your time. I've had a long month, and there's a lot to say, but I honestly cannot stress enough how much your support in words, harsh or not, mean to me. I'll say what has been on my mind lately, but if anybody just came for this, here it is. I'm leaving my ex-wife, Anna, but we are still living together as I pack my things. I'm not really scared of her anymore, so that's her name. I sat down and had a conversation with her. Everything I wrote down and posted here was copy and pasted from Google Docs. I left some details out since they were identifiable for both Anna and I. I showed it to her, and she blew up at me. I understand why she was angry. I did share information about our marriage and life on the internet. Her emotions were reasonable, but I started to get very irritable. She listened to the word vomit that just spewed out. She didn't interrupt me or yell at me because I think she realized in that moment how badly it was all affecting me. I begged her to just hear me out, and surprisingly she did. She admitted to me that she also recognized that she was changing and told her therapist about it. Do I believe her? Not really. She said that she's been scaring herself and that she's been having anger issues flaring up that she's noticed, and as some of you predicted, she didn't want to give sex up, so she cheated on me with some guy she met at her job. Honestly, by the time she explained herself, I didn't care. Because I don't. With everything that has happened, this was the least shocking. I asked Anna, genuinely, if she loved the man she met, and she said yes, which hurt but also didn't seem like a surprise to me. I told Anna that if she didn't love me, I can divorce her and we can figure out the separation and home situation. She agreed far too quickly, but I was so emotionally exhausted and done with her shit that it didn't register how little she valued the marriage to just toss it out like it was nothing. I just told her that for the next guy, she needs to get help. She agreed that she would check herself into the hospital. Some of you suggested a tumor, but that wasn't the case. Her explanation was that the other man got her into drugs. That's all I will say on that matter because it's all she told me. At this point, I don't even care what the reason was because the impact was the same. Honestly, I'll forever kick myself down for not recognizing any warning signs sooner. It should have never gotten to the point that it did, and while it may not be my fault, I'm haunted every day by the thought that I could have been smarter and stopped her from doing everything that she did. When I say that she wasn't always like this, I mean it. She didn't give a specific date from when her affair started, so I can't pinpoint it to an exact event that happened. I miss the woman she used to be, the lovely girl I've known for almost 2 decades. I know this was something that had to be done, but no matter how many times I tell myself that, it doesn't make me feel any better. For those wanting to know, Butter is safe. He's a good boy, and he's staying with my sister while I pack up to leave. My wife never physically hurt him, but she has yelled at him a few times. It hurts not having him here all the time since my sister's house is 30 minutes away, but he's safe and I actually see him tonight. I also informed my family about this situation. I didn't want to, but I knew it was necessary. They understand and apologized for their brushing off of the situation. But to be fair, I downplayed it so that could also be why they didn't see it as an issue. Her family knows we are splitting as well. As for me, I don't really have friends that are available that often, so I've spent most of my time alone in the house and thinking to myself, it was our house at one point. I remember when we first bought it and how excited she was. My best friend and I are going to eat out together, so that's something to look forward to. And she still admitted. I don't hear from her because they take your phone away at the hospital. I hope she can recover, but after everything that my therapist, family, best friend, and you guys have said, I can't bring myself to stay with her. Breaking it off felt like ripping my own arm off. I was devastated and still am. She seemed distraught as well, but I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't think she doesn't care about me. I think there's a part of her that still cares. But maybe I'm wishfully thinking. Even through everything, I can't be mad at her. But I know loving her isn't good for me. Is it wrong to forgive her? To see everything from her side? It hurts. It really does. I don't know anything but her. It feels like my life is over even though it isn't. I don't want to date again, but I just want to connect with other people. It didn't click how isolated I was until I left. And I realize now that she is at fault for my lack of communication with anybody. If I had to conclude this jumbled mess of an update, it'd be this. I'm going to be fine. It's only been like 2 weeks, but it's been the longest 2 weeks of my life. I realize that there are more people around that support and care about me. It honestly was really hard to accept that Anna was a disturbed individual who didn't love me. Sometimes, I still convince myself that she does. But everybody around me states that she doesn't. And I'm coming to terms with this. It's progress. I've spent more than 16 years with this woman tormenting me, and I have a warped perception of reality. It truly is not easy to experience any of this, and honestly sometimes I want to come back to her. But I know that maybe I can find the woman, or man, for me that will love me the way I need to. I'm working it out in therapy, and honestly I'm still frightened of Anna. But I am thankful that she was the catalyst to a new chapter of my life. I learned a lot from this, mostly what love is and isn't. Thanks. You guys have good perspectives on things. I can't say that Reddit is what fixed my problems, but I can say that leaving was a result of the extra push you guys provided. I wish Anna the best, wherever the future takes her. While I'm sad that the future will not have me in it, I think this was the best for both of us, since she didn't seem to love me and I now fear her. This should be the end of my updates. I don't really see this updating further unless something happens with her. I want to be done with this and I want to move on. Update 2. Well, I lied. I thought I was done with all of this. I thought the chapter was closed, and I was ready to move on with my life. But here I am, sitting on the floor of my new, very empty apartment, typing this out because I feel like I'm living in some kind of twisted alternate reality. I don't even know where to begin, so I'll just jump right in. After the last update, I was packing up, getting ready to leave, and Butter was staying with my sister. I'd been trying to adjust to this new normal, telling myself I was doing the right thing, that leaving Anna was the best decision for both of us. And honestly, I was starting to believe it. I mean, it still hurt like hell, but the idea of a future without her wasn't as terrifying as it had been just weeks before. Then last Friday, out of nowhere, I got a call from the hospital. They told me Anna had been released. I wasn't even aware she was getting out so soon. I assumed it would take much longer, given the whole, running over geese, cheating, anger issues, and whatever else was going on with her. But apparently, They thought she was stable enough to leave. I'm not entirely sure who made that call, but hey, I'm not the expert, right? So, here's where things got really weird. Anna showed up at my new place that same night. Yeah, she found out where I lived. No idea how, but she did. I didn't think she'd come looking for me, but there she was, standing outside my door like nothing had changed. At first, I thought she was there for some kind of closure, to apologize, to hell. I don't know, maybe grab the last of her stuff that I hadn't even touched yet. I braced myself for whatever conversation was coming, but what happened was beyond anything I could have prepared for. She acted like nothing had happened. Like the divorce, the affair, the geese, all of it just didn't exist. She smiled at me and asked if I wanted to go get dinner. I was floored. I stood there, dumbfounded, staring at her as if she'd grown another head. Dinner? I asked, still processing the fact that she was even standing in front of me. She laughed, that laugh, the one that used to make me feel warm and loved, but now felt like nails on a chalkboard. Yeah, dinner. I've missed you. Let's go to that little place by the park, the one we used to love. I didn't know what to do. It was like she'd completely wiped her memory of everything that had happened. It wasn't just denial. It was like she was living in a completely different version of reality. I told her, as calmly as I could, that we weren't together anymore, that she'd cheated, that she'd hurt me, that I was moving on. And her response? She tilted her head to the side, like I just told her the sky was purple. What are you talking about? We're fine. We've always been fine. That's when I started to feel real fear creeping in. Not the kind of fear you feel when someone jumps out at you, but the deep, gnawing fear that tells you something is seriously wrong. I told her again very clearly that I didn't want to see her anymore, that we were over, and she needed to leave. She didn't leave. She just stood there, smiling at me, like she knew something I didn't. I shut the door in her face and immediately called my sister, telling her what had just happened. My sister, bless her, didn't even hesitate. She told me to come stay with her, and she'd keep butter for as long as I needed. So, I packed up a few things and got out of there as fast as I could. Now, here's the kicker. The next morning, I went back to my place just to grab some more clothes and check on things, and found something that made my blood run cold. There was a note taped to my front door. It was in Anna's handwriting, and it simply said, "I know you still love me. You can't hide from me forever." I called the police, of course, and they filed a report, but there wasn't much they could do since she hadn't technically broken any laws. It was just a note, after all. But the way she's acting, it's like she's spiraling, and I have no idea what she's capable of anymore. It's like she's refusing to accept reality, like she's built this fantasy in her head where we're still together, where nothing bad ever happened. So now, I'm laying low, staying with my sister, keeping butter close, trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do next. I don't know if she's going to show up again, or if she's finally going to leave me alone. Update 3. I never thought it would come to this. I never thought I'd be sitting here, writing this, knowing that everything in my life has just exploded in the most horrifying way possible. If you followed my story from the beginning, you probably guessed things were going to escalate. Well, they did, and it's taken everything I have to just get this down. Here goes. The end of it all. After Anna showed up at my apartment, things went quiet for a bit. Too quiet. I thought maybe she had finally backed off. Maybe she'd found some other target to focus on. Maybe the hospital stint had done more good than I'd realized. I stayed at my sister's for a few more days, just to be safe. But when nothing happened, I figured it was safe enough to go back to my place. I was wrong. So wrong. I returned to my apartment late one evening, after work, and the place looked exactly as I'd left it. No signs of forced entry, no weird notes on the door, nothing. It felt like maybe the nightmare was finally over. I called my sister, told her everything seemed fine, and promised to come back the next day to pick up butter. That was a huge mistake. If I'd known what was coming, I would have grabbed him that night and never gone back. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a noise that made my skin crawl. It was the faint sound of scratching like nails on a chalkboard, or someone dragging their fingers down a wall. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then it got louder. I bolted out of bed, heart pounding in my chest, and grabbed my phone. The sound was coming from the hallway, just outside my bedroom door. I don't know how, but I knew it was her. I crept toward the door, trying to stay quiet, trying not to let her know I was awake. But as I reached for the doorknob, the scratching stopped. Dead silence. I stood there, frozen, waiting for anything to happen. Then I heard her voice. "I know you're in there," she whispered, barely loud enough for me to hear. "You can't hide from me forever. You belong to me." My blood ran cold. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at the door. heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Then, as quickly as it started, it stopped. The silence was suffocating. I waited for what felt like hours, but there were no more sounds, no more whispers. I couldn't stay in that apartment any longer. I packed a bag, called my sister, and left as quietly as I could. The next morning, I filed another police report. They told me to get a restraining order, which I did. But we all knew it wasn't going to stop her. She was too far gone. That night, I stayed at my sister's, Butter curled up next to me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could start moving on. But Anna had other plans. 2 days later, she broke into my apartment. She didn't just break in, she trashed the place. I got a call from my landlord, telling me the door had been kicked in, the windows were shattered, and the place looked like a tornado had ripped through it. I rushed over, and what I found was worse than I could have imagined. Every single photo of us together had been ripped apart. My clothes were shredded, my furniture slashed to pieces. But that wasn't the worst part. In the middle of the living room floor, she had left something for me. A box. I knew better than to open it, but I couldn't help myself. Inside, there was a single Polaroid photo of Butter. My heart dropped. There was no blood, no obvious sign of harm, but the message was clear. She had found him. She had been watching us. I didn't go back to that apartment after that. I didn't even bother trying to salvage anything. I stayed at my sister's, Butter glued to my side, and waited for the inevitable final showdown. I knew it was coming. I could feel it in my bones. And sure enough, it came. 3 days later, I got a call from my sister while I was at work. Her voice was shaking, and she told me to come home immediately. I didn't even ask why, I just ran to my car and drove like a madman. When I got there, the police were already outside. Anna had shown up at my sister's house. She had tried to get in, screaming that I was hers, that I belonged to her, that no one else could ever have me. My sister, God bless her, had called the cops as soon as she saw Anna in the driveway, and they arrived before she could do anything. They dragged her away, kicking and screaming, her eyes wild and unrecognizable. That was the last time I saw her. The police charged her with breaking and entering, destruction of property, and trespassing. They found out she had been stalking me for weeks, following me to work, watching my sister's house, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I don't know how she snapped, or when she snapped, but the woman I married was long gone. She's in a psychiatric facility now. I haven't heard from her since that night. Part of me still feels guilty, like I should have seen this coming, like I should have been able to stop it before it got so bad. But another part of me knows that none of this was my fault. Anna was sick, deeply, horribly sick, and I couldn't save her. As for me, I'm finally starting to heal. I'm moving far away, somewhere new, where Anna can't find me, where I can start over. Butter is with me, safe and sound. I've cut ties with her family, blocked anyone who might try to reach out on her behalf, and I'm focusing on rebuilding my life.